Coming up on Arirang News, the death toll in China from the coronavirus rises to more than 1,300, along with another 5,000 cases. Japan has reported its first death, and the U.S. reports another case as well. The South Korean government promises financial aid to industries hurt by the coronavirus outbreak, encouraging people to continue their spending and consumption as usual. And despite the bright spots in the South Korean economy, the government expects the coronavirus will dampen this year's economic growth. It pledges support to minimize the impact. It's 4:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. China has confirmed another 120 deaths from the coronavirus and 5,000 newly confirmed cases. And on Thursday, Japan reported its first death, which is only the third outside China. Park Hee-jun has the latest from around the world.
The death toll from the coronavirus is still shooting up in China. According to the country's National Health Commission, the total number of deaths in mainland China has reached more than 1,300, and the number of infections has breached 63,000. That's 120 additional deaths and 5,000 newly confirmed cases on Thursday. And Hubei Province, the center of the outbreak, saw 116 of those deaths and more than 3,000 of those new confirmed cases of the virus. Japan on Thursday reported its first death linked to the outbreak. It was a woman in her 80s, a resident in the Kanagawa prefecture near Tokyo. She'd been in hospital since February 1st after being diagnosed with pneumonia. This is the third death outside mainland China, following one death in the Philippines and another in Hong Kong. Hong Kong added 3 more coronavirus cases, bringing its total to 53. The U.S. has also confirmed its 15th case on Thursday local time. On board the Diamond Princess cruise ship docked in Japan, another 44 cases were confirmed Thursday, 29 Japanese and 15 non-Japanese. That brings the total number of infected cases to 218. After putting the 3,600 passengers under 2 weeks of mandatory quarantine, Japanese health officials plan to let those aged 80 or older to leave the ship as early as Friday if they test negative for the virus. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
China's Hubei Province is using a new way of counting the number of coronavirus infections. Patients don't have to test positive for it, but can be confirmed just through the symptoms they show. The World Health Organization says this will help find new cases more quickly, as the numbers this week have reflected. Lee Seung-jae reports.
14,840. That's the number of newly confirmed COVID-19 cases that were reported Thursday in China's Hubei Province, the epicenter of the outbreak. It established a new daily record and brought the number of confirmed cases in the region to over 48,000. However, the surge came after health authorities in Hubei Province adopted a new methodology for diagnosing the virus.
In Hubei Province only, a trained medical professional can now classify a suspected case of COVID-19 as a clinically confirmed case on the basis of chest imaging rather than having to have a laboratory confirmation.
According to the WHO official, the new method allows clinicians to move and report cases quicker without having to wait for lab confirmation. It also ensures that people get clinical care more quickly. It also allows public health responses in terms of contact tracing and other important public health measures to be initiated. As for other parts of mainland China, the official said they still need to wait for cases to be confirmed in laboratories before they are officially counted. Some have questioned the method and its transparency, as its adoption only in Hubei Province will mean there are 2 tracks of data in China. Others believe the new method will help international health authorities see the true scope of the outbreak. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea, meanwhile, has not reported any new cases of the coronavirus for a third day in a row. The number of confirmed patients is still 28. And this weekend, some of the South Koreans who were flown back from Wuhan will be released from quarantine. For the latest, we have our Kim Dami on the line. So, Dami, it looks like Korea's containment efforts are working.
Right, it appears that way, Devin. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention once again confirmed this afternoon that for the third consecutive day since Tuesday, no additional cases have been confirmed in South Korea. Like you touched upon, the total number of cases remains unchanged at 28, with 7 already out of hospital after making full recoveries. While some 690 people who have been showing symptoms are in the process of being tested, more than 6,000 others have been released after testing negative. And more good news is expected this weekend. The passengers who were on the first and second charter planes from Wuhan, who are quarantined upon arrival, are set to be sent home on Saturday and Sunday, respectively. The KCDC says roughly 700 passengers who have been quarantined in 2 state-run facilities in Asan and Jincheon in Chungcheong Province have all tested negative after being quarantined for 2 weeks. On Saturday, 366 people from both facilities will be released, and the following day, another 334 will leave after a short farewell ceremony in the morning. In a briefing on Friday, Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun thanked the authorities and local residents in Chungcheong Province for their understanding and support during the quarantine period. The Prime Minister also mentioned that more patients are recovering from the virus and stressed that the government is continuing to work hard for the safety and protection of the public. Back to you, Devin.
All right, Kim Da-mi, thank you for that. Now, the U.S. State Department, in other news, says it's deeply concerned about the coronavirus potentially affecting North Korea and is ready to help. It says Thursday that it's prepared to support American and international organizations working in the North by facilitating approval for them. The statement came after the Red Cross called for an urgent exemption to the sanctions on Pyongyang. It wants to be allowed to make a bank transfer to its office in North Korea, saying it's essential as a life-saving intervention. A senior U.S. military officials accused North Korea of continuing to disregard international norms and to promote regional unrest. Speaking to the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee on Thursday, Strategic Commander Admiral Charles Richard said the regime continues to test ICBMs and increase its stockpile of short and medium-range missiles. With the committee discussing next year's defense budget, Admiral Richard called for America's defenses to be ramped up. It's spring training time in Major League Baseball. 2 South Korean pitchers, the Toronto Blue Jays' Yoo Hyun-jin and the St. Louis Cardinals' Kim Kwang-hyun, are starting their journeys with their new teams. Gan Hyung-woo reports.
On Thursday, the Toronto Blue Jays' spring training stadium attracted the most cameras and reporters it had seen in years. They came to see one of the team's new players, Ryu Hyun-jin, also known as the Korean Monster. Blue Jays manager Charlie Montoyo described the 32-year-old lefty as an ace, adding that every time Ryu takes the mound, the team has a chance to win. This offseason, Ryu signed a 4-year contract worth $80 million with the Blue Jays, the biggest deal ever for a South Korean pitcher. This came after his monstrous 2018-2019 campaign with the LA Dodgers. He led both the American and National Leagues with an ERA of 2.32 while earning his first All-Star selection to become the starting pitcher for the National League. Ryu was also the runner-up for the NL Cy Young Award, an annual honor given to the best pitcher of the regular season. Now he's starting his new life in Toronto. The Korean Monster is going to have a chip on his shoulder this season. Another South Korean pitcher, Kim Kwang-hyun, has made the front page of the St. Louis Cardinals' official website. The headline reads, "Lefty Kim comes out firing in first session." The 31-year-old threw more than 50 pitches, whereas starters are normally asked to throw 30 to 40 pitches in their first spring outings. Although the South Korean pitcher repeatedly said he's open to any role with the Cardinals, Kim looks to be competing for the 5th starting rotation spot. In the winter, the lefty signed a 2-year contract worth $8 million with the Cardinals, finally realizing his lifelong dream of playing in the MLB. Over 12 seasons with the SK Wyverns and the Korea Baseball Organization, Kim had an ERA of 3.27 while throwing 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Although he cemented his place as one of the best pitchers of his time in the Korean League, the lefty, or as he likes to be called KK, will have to prove himself again in the big leagues. Gan Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea's top two economic policy officials have pledged that the government will do its utmost to minimize the impact of the coronavirus on the economy. In a meeting with Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol on Friday, Finance Minister Hong Nam-ki said the government will take measures to support the affected sectors and will keep the economy on the path to recovery. Hong urged people not to be too cautious and to continue with their normal spending and economic activities because the government has been working to get the disease fully under control. He also said the central bank is working on financial aid for the affected sectors, including the service and manufacturing industries. There have been some bright spots lately in the South Korean economy in terms of jobs and investment, but the government's forecasting that the coronavirus outbreak could dampen economic growth this year. The outbreak, it notes, is not reflected in the latest figures. Our Ji-young has more.
The Ministry of Economy and Finance has expressed its concern over the impact of the coronavirus outbreak on the South Korean economy. According to the ministry's monthly greenbook report released on Friday, the country's economic recovery could be limited by the impact of the coronavirus. The ministry was otherwise optimistic, saying that the Korean economy is on a recovery path on the back of increasing employment, rising production and investment in facilities, and a rebound in domestic consumption in the fourth quarter of last year. The Greenbook highlighted that the number of people employed in January reached 26.8 million, up 568,000 on year. Production for all industries in December 2019 increased 3.2% on year, with production for mining and manufacturing industries increasing by 4.2%. Investment in facilities also rose 11.1% on year in December, and construction investment rose 2.1%. Domestic consumption increased in the fourth quarter of 2019, up 1.7% compared to same period of the previous year. The Greenbook also said the increase in the price of DRAM semiconductors and the recovery of the global economy will likely have a positive impact on the Korean economy. However, the government expressed concerns that the outbreak of the coronavirus could negatively impact the growth of the Chinese and the world economy, which in turn could hamper Korea's economic recovery. An official at the Ministry of Economy and Finance said the numbers in this month's Greenbook do not fully reflect the effect of the coronavirus, as the disease first broke out at the end of January. He said the government will support the affected sectors and will devote all efforts to minimize the harm to the South Korean economy. Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's import and export prices both fell in January. According to the Bank of Korea, the country's import price index fell 0.8% from the previous month, marked by falling global oil prices. The price of Dubai crude was around $64 a barrel last month, down almost 1% from the month before. South Korea's export prices were also down 0.8% from last December. The central bank said the fall in export prices was largely due to the weakening greenback against the local currency. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me today.
So coming off a series of new highs, stocks on Wall Street were down overnight on concerns about the coronavirus. What's the story there exactly, and where do you see things going from here?
Sure. It seems that the distrust of the Chinese data continues to exist. China's Hubei Province reported that additional of 116 deaths and 4,823 new cases as of the end of February 13th. Of the new cases, the government said that 3,095 were clinically diagnosed. So it's like a separate way of looking at things. In total, Hubei authorities said that 51,986 people have been infected in the province. After this, the United States have said that they have very little confidence in the information coming out of China regarding the count of the coronavirus cases. Clearly, this has impacted globally. Most of the market fell because of that news, and continuation of the uncertainty regarding the coronavirus exists. However, though, if you look at the U.S. market, at the beginning of the market, it fell as high as 1%, but mostly that losses were recovered. NASDAQ closed at 0.14% decline, and S&P was only down 0.16%. The reason for that is because a lot of people already suspected that numbers were probably underplayed. And also, a lot of people are expecting much or more aggressive government boosting measures, both sides from the U.S. as well as China. So if that's the case, then market seems to be taking a bit of a breather. Of course, it might be difficult to rise further continuously, but also at the same time, it might not fall as significantly as most people are worried about.
Well, now here in Korea, the Kospi might have taken Wall Street's cue, but in fact, it was up today. What happened in Korean stocks?
Yes, as you said, that is the case that Kospi has rebounded by 0.5%, and Kosdaq was up about 0.2%. It seems that the market is taking a bit of a relieved rally or relieved rise per se. And main reason for that is because yesterday was the option closing day, so volatility had occurred. However, today, because of the additional aggressive measures by the government on both sides from the U.S. as well as China, and also Korean government is saying that they will monitor this quite aggressively. So they have a bit of more dependency on government measures. The concern of the COVID-19 continues to exist, but high dependency on liquidity injection exists as well. The Federal Reserve of U.S. said that it is closely monitoring the coronavirus and its impact on the China as well as the global economic growth. Jerome Powell said that they will do anything in the future if there is any sign of slowdown or recession, and that they will use the quantitative easing again. And they continue to say that they will continue to provide ample liquidity to support the system. It seems that that is the case not just for U.S., but global economy as well, and also that is for Korea as well. So therefore, people are having more dependency and trust in regards to what government is doing in regards to this incident.
Well, in other news, we see, according to the BOK, that Korea's export prices were down last month in won terms because of the Korean currency's recent appreciation. These figures, however, do not reflect the impact of the coronavirus. And, of course, the won has since weakened quite a bit. Tell us about these figures and what you think might happen this month.
Yes. The much-awaited rebound in South Korean exports may not be coming as easily as export prices slid back in January. To hit the lowest in more than 3 years, even without the news of virus outbreak setback. As you said, the export price index slipped about 0.8% on month to 96.59 in January after a brief tick-up in previous month. And it is lowest since the January of 2016 when it stood at 93.46. Against a year ago, it actually fell 2.7%, down for the 8th straight month. This is clearly because of the Korea's high dependency on the memory chip prices. If you look at the memory chip prices, it plummeted about 41.4% for a year earlier. That is making that impact. However, though, we do think that the overall prices can recover if you exclude the coronavirus impact, as the more demand for the memory is actually happening. However, though, because of the coronavirus incident, the first quarter numbers are not going to look good because China's demand slowed quite significantly. So therefore, for the short-term period, the export price is not going to recover that much for the time being. However, though, if the coronavirus does settle down with the spring coming, with a higher the temperature, then I think that the recovery in the export prices can happen in the second quarter. But for the time being, still everybody's skeptical in terms of how that's going to play out in the future.
All right, Mr. Yu, we'll be watching that closely, but I have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now, Samsung Electronics' newest foldable smartphone model has arrived in South Korea and is available to buy right now. Samsung and the country's 3 telecommunications giants started online and offline sales of the Galaxy Z Flip at 9 a.m. Korea time. For those who want one without a new SIM card, they can be bought online through sites like Samsung.com or Coupang. According to industry sources, around 20,000 units will be released in the first week. The Galaxy Z Flip retails for $1,400 in South Korea. South Korea's Lotte Shopping suffered a drop in operating profit last year, mainly due to lower sales at its discount outlets and supermarkets. Operating profit was down some 28% on year to around $360 million. And for the year, it posted a net loss of around $730 million. Sales fell by more than 1% from the previous year. Lotte Shopping says it'll close around 200 of its department stores and supermarkets, which is about 1/3 of its 700 stores nationwide. The OECD predicts global corporate income tax revenues to increase some 4% a year after countries reform the way they tax digital companies like Google and Facebook. That's an extra $100 billion annually. It says the gains would be similar across all countries, high, middle, and low income. The OECD says it aims to get an agreement on digital taxation done by the end of the year. The U.S. and France have been in a standoff over the issue for months. The Trump administration claims such taxes unfairly target American tech giants like Apple, Google, and Facebook. These days, people encounter artificial intelligence all the time, whether they know it or not. Browsing the internet, shopping in the store, AI shapes our experiences in all kinds of ways. But some say the way machines are starting to think for us and leave us with only the illusion of choice is unhealthy. Oh Soo-young explores this issue in London.
From automation taking jobs to chatbots that replace real conversations and algorithms that track and even determine our activities, it's hard to tell whether machines are becoming human or if we're losing our humanity. This existential question is posed by acclaimed French artist Cyril de Camargue.
Most people are abandoning this with no control, and they seem to not mind so much. But if you abandon your personal fear, you also abandon your capacity to refuse. And I think it's very dangerous and pervasive for our societies.
Titled Artificialist, the installation provokes soul-searching on what could soon be a dystopian future, where humans have lost control over privacy and free will to artificial intelligence. Such larger philosophical questions are at the centre of debate in London. How the growing use of AI and machines in jobs and daily lives will affect people, not just economically, but socially and ethically. Large corporations, for instance, could manipulate algorithms and connected devices to trap consumers into what's been coined as surveillance capitalism. But we don't have to be doomed to dystopia. Finding human-centred applications for AI and robotics is leading to breakthroughs in medicine, elderly care and education, as well as in the workplace.
I'm also interested in how technology can be integrated into our teamwork and then how it disrupts or reshape our social interaction. So one of my studies actually showed that if you were emotionally attached to your robot, your performance was actually increased.
But ethical standards still need to be established.
One, I think citizens need to be provided with information that ensures that there's a transparency with how things work, which we don't have at the moment. No one knows how the Facebook algorithm works. Secondly, we need to look at ethics behind artificial intelligence. So most of this code is written by young white guys in Northern California. Is this the right way to proceed? How can we ensure that there's diversity and inclusion in these kinds of algorithms, because it's baked in at the very beginning. So we have to ensure that minorities and people of colour, women, are part of these conversations.
AI isn't just going to change our industrial landscape and make our lives more convenient. The growing presence of smart technology in our lives and how we interact with it could change the core of who we are. And we still don't know whether these technologies will ultimately empower us or enchain us. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, London.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.